streams that filter through this land of ours and fill a sportsman's dreams. Enjoy what nature holds for us, her bounty never ends. Getting back to basics with the practical sportsman. It's always an adventure, no matter where we go. From a favorite hunting spot to the hottest fishing hole. Outdoor life we all can share with family and friends. We'll do it all together with a practical sportsman. We'll do it all together with a practical sportsman.
Hi there, come on in. It is Thursday night, October 12th, the year 2000. You're watching The Practical Sportsman. My name is Fred Trost. I have been duck hunting recently, and I'm going to bring you a report on 2 hunts that I've been on, including this past weekend's opener in the southern part of the state. We're going to get into some gruesome, controversial stuff. I'm going to get that out of the way first, but there are things that you need to know, and I have a lot more, so please stay tuned.
Fred Trost Practical Sportsman is brought to you in part by Marbles of Gladstone, Michigan, a maker of high-quality, handcrafted sporting knives and sporting specialties that stand the test of time since 1898. Construction workers in Michigan are in high demand. The Michigan Regional Council of Carpenters knows that carpenters and millwrights have many opportunities. Our 18,000-plus members stand for quality in work and in life. The Carpenters and Joiners Union, building with pride and quality for over a century. By Hawk Hollow Golf Course Banquet and Convention Center, featuring a clubhouse which accommodates 700. The 27-hole golf course winds through 500 acres of woods, hills, and lakes in Bath Township. Hawk Hollow, a beautiful place for a drive. And by the financial support of viewers like you.
I got to tell you, I'm not putting this at the beginning of the show here because I think this is fun or particularly interesting. I just feel it's important that you know these controversies exist. They're tearing the sportsman community apart. They're pitting sportsmen against each other. There's nothing really fun about it. It doesn't add to the fun of the outdoors. It just presents a challenge to us about how are we going to find our own fun. When you look at the agency, the DNR, we have a DNR director, K.L. Cool, anointed by the governor. He serves at the governor's pleasure. This DNR director is embroiled in controversy and almost scandal. Take a look at a couple issues here of the Northwoods Call. I'm only going to show you the headlines on the cover. This one, up heat on DNR director for expense fraud. I mean, that's big time stuff. DNR director Cool charged with ethics violation. Came up a month or two later. Then State Ethics Board calls Cool Burns. Herb Burns was the head of the law division. He stepped down in the midst of controversy. Then feds, the federal government, charged hunting license dollars misused. That's right, our DNR is being accused of misusing license dollars, screwing up the budget. I'm not going to get into that right now. Here's one more headline in the recent issue. Charge Cool with lobbying for developer and misspending license dollars. Well, that's what's going on at the top of the DNR. Controversy, scandal, misappropriation, not following internal regulations, and who knows how far this goes. It's nothing that makes any of us feel good about the outdoors. We do have sportsmen's groups who are supposed to represent sportsmen, what we've been told. Michigan United Conservation Club's September issue of their Michigan Out of Doors magazine talked about the results of their convention. This is a convention, remember, it's the Michigan United Conservation Clubs. Jim Goodhart, the executive director, in a little editorial, To Bait or Not to Bait, explained it this way. He said, no other issue has been as debated and as contentious in recent years as that of baiting and feeding of wild deer in Michigan. From our surveys at Michigan United Conservation Clubs and information we gathered at our 8 deer public information meetings around the state, it is very clear that hunters are divided nearly 50-50 on the issue. At our recent MUCC annual convention, one of the many resolutions debated and passed was to eliminate the baiting and feeding of deer in the Lower Peninsula. This now becomes our policy and will be our position before the Natural Resources Commission. And Jim Goodhart recognizes that with a 50-50 split in Sportsman, he said, "I know this action has caused some members even to consider leaving MUCC. To that, I can only say we regret that this democratically achieved vote by our delegates may not be able to please everyone." No kidding. When the DNR and MUCC, the United Conservation Clubs, knows that it is very clear that hunters are divided nearly 50-50 on the issue, it seems to be a strange way to present a policy from the United Conservation Clubs. It certainly is not the united attitude of sportsmen in this state. These are the kinds of issues I just wanted to give you a taste of. There are more, but these are just some of the things that are causing sportsmen 50-50 to buck each other, to be disenchanted about the DNR, to really question things like the youth hunt. What's going on with the deer management? Well, I got to kind of wrap this up here now. We got to get onto some fun in this show. But how, well, I don't know how you're going to do it, but I'll tell you how I am going to squeak some fun out of this. I know one thing. Our governor runs the DNR with a tyrannical iron hand. These political decisions that come down are not illegal. They're not anything against the law. The governor has full right to do that. He's been elected by you. He has 2 more years to go. I'm not going to the meetings. I'm not going to be embroiled in these controversies. I'm not going to lose sleep over this stuff. I just know in 2 years there's a hope that we get a new governor. I don't care what party, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, whatever. Maybe a new governor will relax the grip on the executive agencies, let them operate, and let us in on what's really going on. That's my hope. There's nothing I can do about this government right now. There's nothing I can do about these DNR regulations. Just tell me what they are. Baiting, obviously, on its way out. So, I'm preparing for this. My fun is going to be in finding different ways of maybe attracting deer or ambushing deer or successfully hunting deer that doesn't involve baiting. I think hunters have kind of gotten away from that type of thing, but we're going to look at that feature now because this is one key as to how you can have some fun. To heck with the politics, to heck with the 50-50, to heck with the arguing. Let's go back and study deer and see if we can't enjoy the fun of hunting them. Ducks respond to calls, but what really brings them in is a spread of decoys. Even crude simulations of ducks floating on the water do attract wild ducks that don't seem to know the difference. The same principle works for goose decoys set out on dry land. Turkey decoys and turkey calls bring in gobblers. But what about deer? They look smarter than birds, but did you ever wonder about decoying a buck? Well, we'll never know if we don't try it. Hey, there are loads of tracks in here. Just loaded with tracks. We're going to set up this decoy, maybe 75 yards from our blind. Gotta put the ear on here. Ears are the important thing, according to Bob McGuire. Indicates a doe that's, maybe I'll face it like this. Because I expect the deer to be coming from that way. Let's see. No, I tell you what, I'm going to face it this direction because they're likely to think that this doe is looking that way and it'll take their eyes off of us. It's late afternoon on the opening day of deer season 1990. We had seen very few deer, so at 3 p.m. we moved to a field that always had deer come in the evening. Not many bucks, but lots of does, and we wanted to see how they'd react to a decoy. Cameraman John Ford and I watched from the base of a spruce tree. But this is a beautiful set. Oh, you know what? I almost thought we had a deer out there, but it's our decoy. The nice thing about this is I can rest the rifle on this branch up against the side.
We're really concealed in here. So, we'll just wait and see if the decoy works. The wind is blowing this direction, so it's going to take our scent away from the deer. Well, once again, John, we're in the, quote, catbird seat. Maybe this one will work.
My son Zach was on the same side of the field, 100 yards to our right, closer to where the deer usually come out. Now, he saw a buck that we couldn't see. Zach missed the buck,
Come on, Zach,
but the
have a
3
little
does at the end of the field didn't run, evidently because the decoy didn't run. Interesting reaction. It's the next afternoon. We came back to that field, setting our blind on the south side rather than the north. Now, to mask my scent from handling the decoy and maybe even attract the deer, I put a quart of urine over the plastic dough. Now, human urine is the freshest, easiest to obtain deer scent you can get. Now, keep in mind that most deer will be coming from the swamp to the west. That's on the upwind side. The wind's blowing from that direction, so any deer that's on that end of the field won't be able to smell the decoy or smell us. But their eyes don't have the same limitations as their noses. Their eyes work in all directions. That's why the idea of a decoy is so attractive. To smell this decoy, a deer would have to be directly behind it, because that's the direction of the wind on this afternoon. Now, in about a half hour, the first doe appeared at the west end of the field. From the moment it laid eyes on the decoy, it was intent, but somewhat alarmed. It even faked like it was relaxed, only to snap its head up trying to catch the decoy, making a false move. For the first time, it checks downwind, towards us, with its ears. Remember, there's no way it can smell anything from our direction. So its attention goes back to the decoy, a deer it doesn't recognize, a deer that doesn't move. It's still quite a distance from the decoy, but this proves that a deer can pick out another deer when it's totally motionless. So they can recognize motionless objects. Now, this might be a signal, but this doe is urinating.
Yeah, it looks like it wants some reaction from the decoy. I mean, that could be a little buck, but it's probably a small doe. But she's really disconcerted that that decoy doesn't respond.
This little doe tried her best to get the decoy to move, finally bounding off in the classic alarm response. But she didn't leave the field. She was just taunting the decoy.
Look at that leaping. I bet it stops right down there. Yep, it's gonna stop right there. Turn around and look back. Isn't that something? That is amazing. Well, one thing that decoy does, it takes that deer's attention off of us. But I wouldn't call this a real positive response.
Well, it wasn't a friendly response, but it was a definite response for sure. While the first doe was feeding, a second doe came out, this time from the north side of the field, closer to the decoy, and it worked itself downwind from the decoy where it could catch its scent.
Oh, this is neat.
An hour ago, I had doused this decoy with a quart of my own urine, and I guess I passed the test. This deer definitely wasn't alarmed by the scent. In fact, it probably helped.
I think we have the 2 smallest deer in the county out here.
The second doe was unsettled by this motionless decoy. The first doe didn't care anymore and was feeding about 50 yards away. But the second doe, though, was totally absorbed in that decoy. Something wasn't right about this frozen deer.
Oh, this is hysterical.
Now it seems to be more concerned about where the decoy is looking, or appears to be looking. I mean, it's just a decoy. It's a hunk of plastic. But the real deer knows where the fake deer is supposed to be looking.
Look at that. Oh, too much.
There's no doubt that the decoy attracted other deer and kept their attention away from us.
Well, that walked all around that decoy that we had been touching. Downwind, upwind, it didn't seem to matter. You know, that little fawn there is more interested in the decoy than it is in the other deer. Yeah, it probably knows that other deer. Those fawns keep looking back at the decoy, and where the decoy is looking, it's going back again, but it walked all around it, walked downwind from it, apparently didn't smell where we had touched. They're just fixated on that decoy. I'd like to see what a buck does. Well, next fall, during bow season, we'll find out if decoys work on bucks like they do on ducks. Place your bets. I think it's going to work.
It was sort of a fad of using decoys, and I got away from that. I haven't used them in years, but after watching this feature and looking what's happening with baiting and all that controversy, digging out that old decoy, and I'm going to use it again this gun season, see if we can't get some action from some bucks. Now, let's go from bucks to ducks. I've been hunting the past 2 weekends, the duck and opener in the Upper Peninsula and down here in the southern part of the Lower Peninsula, and the report, well, we had a good time, but it wasn't loaded with ducks. Craig Lauerman just bought some duck calls and a tape. Never needed them up here before, only some decoys. Zeb, the 8-year-old yellow lab, whines when he's anxious. No ducks, but do you recognize this bird that flew over?
Gets excited, yeah. When you pick up your gun, he gets a little excited too.
What's that? Horses? There we go. They make a racket taking off those white swans. Their huge wings beat the water like horses' hooves, and their wings grunt and whistle in the air. Last year on opening day, ducks flew all over this blind. Zeb remembers those years when he was retrieving all morning. This year, for whatever reason, very few ducks. With few ducks, why hunt here? Because this is where Uncle Henry has the most beautiful rustic cabin you'd ever want to stay in, and where you stay and who you stay with are far more important than keeping company with ducks. A week later, southern Michigan, there should be ducks all over here. Finally, one came in.
Let him out!
This black lab is 2 years old. Her name is Scout, and she's very enthusiastic about retrieving ducks. Unfortunately, this was one of the few retrieves that she'd make this day.
Right here. Right here.
Yeah, that was very pretty loud to you, wasn't it?
Telephone's ringing.
Bluebill.
Yeah.
Lesser bluebill.
Our guide, Matt Guideout. His guide service, Ducks Are Us.
Haven't seen one of them in quite a while.
Hunting with Matt was a different situation than hunting with Craig Lauerman at Uncle Henry's cabin. Instead of the ambiance of a duck camp, Matt is a guide who takes you to where the ducks are, or at least to where they are most of the time, or at least where they were last time. And Matt has places to go in urban areas. Tim Farragon and I had a great time hunting with Matt and with Matt's dad, Jim, who Matt got back into duck hunting. You know, we worry so much about kids not starting hunting. I don't think we worry enough about baby boomers and seniors who are quitting hunting. Even without a lot of ducks, hunting ducks is a lot of fun. What to do with a duck? Mitchell Marr from Dearborn says you should cook it in wine and currant jelly. Now, this is not a recipe for skinned and breasted duck. It's for ducks that have been plucked and the skin left on. Now, don't worry about a few pin feathers. We don't eat the skin anyway. Ducks have huge giblets, gizzard and heart. Cook those separately. They're really not a part of this recipe. Now, you want to barbecue the duck for about a half hour over high heat. Object is to burn the fat off and partially cook the duck. Scoop out 2 jars of red currant jelly into a pot. Add 1 cup of cooking sherry, 2 teaspoons of garlic salt. Get this boiling and set the duck in there for a half hour, basting and turning it frequently. Now, this finishes cooking the duck and keeps it moist. When it's done, cut the skin off and cut the meat off the skeleton in bite-sized pieces. They go into custard cups that have the marinade in the bottom. Now, you want to let this meat marinade for about 5 minutes before serving. Mitchell Mars says people who don't normally care for duck will love wild duck with currant jelly. And you can find that recipe on our website, or it's going to be published in our upcoming Hunting, Gathering, and Collecting magazine, which will be out in November. Just write to us if you want to get on the list to get a copy. I got to bring up a point here about a woodcock recipe I had on a couple weeks ago. We used woodcock breasts. Veteran wildlife biologist Andy Ammon called me and he said the breasts are dark because the birds fly. The legs are white meat. And he says, I didn't use the legs, they're the best part. So I stand corrected. Another note on duck hunting. Jimmy Lewandowski called me from Jimmy's Boat Livery down in the Lake St. Clair area. He has boats, he's painted them camo, he needs guides. Tons of people want to go duck hunting on Lake St. Clair and they contact him, but he doesn't have any guides. So if you're interested in guiding, get a hold of Jimmy, check our website or give us a call and we'll get you hooked up with him. Now, let's get on to some real shooting. I didn't do much shooting on the duck openers, but I tell you, I got a lot of shooting in on the afternoon of September 30th. Here's the basic layout for the new game called Super Sporting. The shooter shoots 11 shots from a box. 3 clay target throwers, A, B, and C, give shooter different target combinations with no repeats. Now, here's a single from trap A.
There it goes. Single B, coming out.
The clay pigeon flies from the trap and sails on the wind as the shooter mounts the gun, tries to break the target. Now you get a single target from each trap, then 4 different combinations of doubles. You never get the same shot twice. September 30th was the second time this game had been tried here in Michigan, which is why the first station was a simple setup with traps A, B, and C visible so shooters could get used to shooting in this more complicated sequence. That was Mike Stewart shooting the single A. His second shot is the single B target. Nobody shot a perfect 100. The highest was 92. The lowest was 47, which is not a bad score at Clay's, and I got a 77. And I promised I'd roll the names of the shooters who outscored me. Paul Polanski, by the way, is the president of the Michigan Sporting Clays Association. Now, Robert Cox was the oldest shooter in his 70s. Jim Stewart, 1 target below him, is 16 years old. Oh yeah, Tim Farragon beat me once again with his pump gun. But Mike Stewart kind of buckled under the pressure of the video camera. The lens was in his face on a number of the stations, and frankly, that rattles even the best of shooters during a competition. And that's why I generally just videotape practice rounds for this show. Now, why did I get a 77? Well, I'll show you what I did on 23 targets. Oh yeah, that happens a lot in the shotgun games. Shooting, what a riot. Lots of action, lots of activity, lots of fun. That's why I love the shooting sports. Not going to be doing much of that, though, until January when the hunting seasons wrap up. Now, one thing that I am involved in, I say I'm not going to meetings and fighting things that I can't do anything about. Well, as an attorney, there are some things we can accomplish in court. And one issue that's been sort of a pet project of mine is conservation officers trespassing on private land, trespassing without a warrant, without probable cause during hunting season. I happen to believe that that's a violation of the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. We have a court case going on this. I'm going to do a seminar the 11th of November, Saturday afternoon, Alpena Civic Center. It's the only time we could get that facility. on trespass, conservation officers, your rights as a hunter, your rights as a landowner. I'll have more information about that next week. Now that that's out of the way, let's get a smile on our faces and get outdoors. It's a great place to be. See you next week.
Fred Trost Practical Sportsman is brought to you in part by Marbles of Gladstone, Michigan, a maker of high-quality handcrafted sporting knives and sporting specialties that stand the test of time since 1898. Construction workers in Michigan are in high demand. The Michigan Regional Council of Carpenters knows that carpenters and millwrights have many opportunities. Our 18,000 plus members stand for quality in work and in life. The Carpenters and Joiners Union, building with pride and quality for over a century. By Hawk Hollow Golf Course Banquet and Convention Center, featuring a clubhouse which accommodates 700. The 27-hole golf course winds through 500 acres of woods, hills, and lakes in Bath Township. Hawk Hollow, a beautiful place for a drive. And by the financial support of viewers like you.
John Mimranic from Ithaca got this buck in Gratiot County. I tell you, this is another wild rack. That's all palmated in there, your moose type of palmation. It has, look at this one there with 1, 2, 3 tines off it. And if that isn't weird enough, check out the other side of the rack. I don't know what that's all about. What is that, Bill? That when it's
just an early injury and then
an injury.
Blood buildup in there and it pops.
Huh, an early injury when it was in its velvet. A wild rack.
Yep.
That is cool. How long you been hunting?
This is my, I've been hunting since I was 15, rifle hunting.
And how old are you now? We can figure this out.
I'm 19, so 4 years.
That's 4 years. Very good. What is it that's kept you going?
Having time with my dad out in the woods and with my brother-in-law and nephews and just family time.
How old are you? You're talking the age between 15 and 19, and you enjoy being with your dad?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
What do you get for allowance?
Nothing. I'm going to college, though.
Ah, okay. Footing the bill there. Well, that's great. Oh, that is awesome. Well, that's great that you're hunting with your dad and having fun and getting big bucks.
Yep.
This is so unusual. You can be proud of that one.
Thanks.
Thank you. That is John Mimranic, Ithaca.